What's up, everybody, and welcome to Read the Bible with me. I'm Stan Jr., and today we're looking at 1 Kings chapter 7. Today we're talking about Solomon's building his palace, and if you're new here, go ahead and click subscribe to this channel, and if you should also turn on your notification bell. If you're a Bible Club member, go ahead and like this video and leave a comment below. And thank you so much for your donation, helping us spread the word of God through sending Bibles and missionaries around the world. So I appreciate that, and I'm glad to have you on the team. Let's look at chapter 7 of 1 Kings. It says Solomon was building his own house 13 years, and he finished his entire house. He built the house of the forests of Lebanon. Its length was 100 cubits, and its breadth 50 cubits, and its height 30 cubits. And it was built on 4 rows of cedar pillars, with cedar beams on the pillars, and it was covered with cedar above the chambers that were on the 45 pillars, 15 in each row. There were window frames in 3 rows, and window opposite window in 3 tiers, and all the doorways and windows had square frames, and window was opposite window in 3 tiers. And he made a hall of pillars. Its length was 50 cubits, and its breadth 30 cubits. There was a porch in front of the pillars, and a canopy in front of them. And he made the hall of the throne where he was to pronounce judgment, even the hall of judgment. It was finished with cedar from floor to rafters. His own house, where he was to dwell, in the other court back of the hall, was of like workmanship. Solomon also made a house like this hall for Pharaoh's daughter, whom he had taken in marriage. All these were made of costly stones cut according to measure, sawed with saws, back and front, even from the foundation to the coping, and from the outside to the great court. The foundation was of costly stones, huge stones, stones of 8 and 10 cubits. Above were costly stones, cut according to measurement, and cedar. That great court had 3 courses of cut stone all around, and a course of cedar beams, so that he had the inner court of his house, of the house of the Lord, and the vestibule of the house. The King Solomon King Solomon sent and brought Hiram from Tyre, and he was the son of a widow of the tribe of Naphtali. And his father was a man of Tyre, a worker in bronze, and he was full of wisdom, understanding, and skill for making any work in bronze. He came to the king Solomon and did all his work. He cast 2 pillars of bronze. 18 cubits was the height of one pillar, and a line of 12 cubits measured its circumference. It was hollow, and its thickness was 4 fingers. The second pillar was the same. He also made 2 capitals of cast bronze to set on the tops of the pillars. The height of the one capital was 5 cubits, and the height of the other capital was 5 cubits. There were lattices of checker work with the reefs of chain work for the capitals on the tops of the pillars, lattice for the one capital and lattice for the other capital. Likewise, he made pomegranates in 2 rows around the one lattice to cover the capital that was on the top of the pillar. And he did the same with the other capital. Now the capitals that were on the tops of the pillars in the vestibule were of lily work, 4 cubits. The capitals were on the 2 pillars and also above the rounded projection which was beside the lattice work, where there were 200 pomegranates in 2 rows all around. And so with the other capital he set up the pillars that the vestibule of the temple. He set up the pillar on the south and called its name Jachin. And he set up the pillar on the north and called its name Boaz. And on the tops of the pillars was lily work. Thus the work of the pillars was finished. Then he made a sea of cast metal. It was round, the cubits from brim to brim, and 5 cubits high, and a line of 30 cubits measured its circumference. Under its brim were gourds for 10 cubits compassing the sea all around. The gourds were in 2 rows, cast with it when it was cast. It stood on 12 oxen, 3 facing north, and 3 facing west, 3 facing south, and 3 facing east. The sea was set on them, and all their rear parts were inward. Its thickness was a handbreadth, and its brim was made like the brim of a cup, like the flower of a lily. It held 2,000 baths. He also made the 10 stands of bronze. Each stand was 4 cubits long, 4 cubits wide, and 3 cubits high. This was the construction of the stands. They had panels, and the panels were set in the frames, and on the panels were set in the frames were lions, oxen, and cherubim. On the frames, both above and below the lions and oxen, there were wreaths of beloved work. Moreover, each stand had 4 bronze wheels and axles of bronze, and at the 4 corners were supports for a basin. The supports were cast with wreaths at the side of each. Its opening was within a crown that projected upward 1 cubit. Its opening was round as a pedestal is made, a cubit and a half deep. At its opening there were carvings, and its panels were square, not round, and the 4 wheels were underneath the panels. The axles of the wheels were of one piece, which with the stands, and the height of the wheels was a cubit and a half. The wheels were made like a chariot wheel. Their axles, their rims, their spokes, and their hubs were all cast. There were 4 supports at the 4 corners of each stand. The supports were of one piece with the stands, and on the top of the stand there was a round band half a cubit high. And on the top of the stand its stays and its panels were of one piece with it. And on the surface of its stands and on its panels he carved cherubim, lions, and palm trees according to the space of each, with wreaths all around. After this manner he made the 10 stands. All of them were cast alike, of the same measure and the same form. And he made 10 basins of bronze. Each basin held 40 baths. Each basin measured 40 cubits, and there was a basin for each of the 10 stands. And he set the stands 5 on the south side, 5 on the south side of the house, and 5 on the north side of the house. And he set the sea at the southeast corner of the house. Hiram also made the pots, the shovels, the basins. So Hiram finished all the work that he did for King Solomon on the house of the Lord. 2 pillars and the 2 bowls of the capitals that were on the tops of the pillars, and the 2 lattice works to cover the 2 bowls of the capitals that were on the tops of the pillars, and the 400 pomegranates for the 2 lattice works, 2 rows of pomegranates for each lattice work to cover the 2 bowls of the capitals that were on the pillars, and the 10 stands and the 10 basins on the stands, and the 1 sea and the 12 oxen underneath the sea. Now the pots, the shovels, and the basins, all these vessels in the house of the Lord, which Hiram made for King Solomon, were of burnished bronze. In the plain of the Jordan the king cast them, and the clay ground between Succoth and Zarethan. And Solomon left all the vessels unweighed, because there was so many of them. The weight of the bronze was not ascertained. So Solomon made all the vessels that were in the house of the Lord, the golden altar, the golden table for the bread of the presence, the lampstands of pure gold, 5 on the south side, 5 on the north, before the inner sanctuary, the flowers, the lamps, and the tongs of gold, the cups, snuffers, basins, dishes for incense, and fire pans of pure gold, and the sockets of gold, for the doors of the innermost part of the house, the most holy place, and for the doors of the nave of the temple. Thus all the work that King Solomon did on the house of the Lord was finished. And Solomon brought in the things that David his father had dedicated, the silver, the gold, and the vessels, and stored them in the treasuries of the house of the Lord. This is a good lesson on finishing and working all the way to the end, not stopping until the project is completed. Ask God to give you a project or a faith project in your life that will take more than 1 or 2 years to complete. so that you work on it every single day in your life, you and God working on this project, and allow Him to show you what patience and long suffering and diligence will produce. Consistency and patience will produce the fruit that you are desiring. So just give God time to work with you and have a project that you can see to the end. The blessings at the end of the completion. All right. So thank you so much for reading the Word of God with me today. Chapter 7. If you stayed for the whole time, comment "I stayed." And then I will see you the next day. We read together, whenever that is. We'll be reading chapter 8 of the book of 1 Kings. God bless you. See you then. Peace.